Hey everyone, I'm back again, and today I'm bringing you a message which will hopefully be as valuable to you as it is currently to me. All right, so I really want to dive into this one with you guys. So I want you to think about what your deepest path of your deepest fears are, and also what you might perceive to be your most empowering pathway for growth, but maybe it's a little bit too scary. Maybe it's a little bit too confronting, whatever it kind of comes up for yourself. But I would love for you guys, as always, to play along at home. And definitely can't wait to share this particular message with you because why? Because I'm going through it. And why is because I've been doing a ton of my own growth recently. As you guys know, it's like a daily occurrence. But I've been having some particular major breakthroughs just recently that I really want to I'm not going to go into the specifics of them so much today as I am in past breakthroughs. But today I'm talking about a massive learned truth. And you may or may not have experienced this for yourselves. So let's dive in and let's see how this is an actual truth, what I'm going to share with you guys today, which is your most empowering path of growth will manifest your deepest fears, but it will also provide you with the tools that you most need. All right, so that's what we're going to be diving into today. And the major reason I really wanted to bring this to today's topic and conversation is that ultimately it's been a big wake-up call for me, and I've been diving into a lot of my just getting deeper clarity on my own values and deeper clarity on the purpose or the motivation behind everything that I do. And it's really important for me to feel like I'm always in integrity and I'm always being authentic. And I've had some kind of, realizations on a deeper level that I hadn't previously had, which has been very eye-opening and not all that comfortable, but also my future self will definitely thank me for. So today I want to use a couple of examples with why it is true that whenever you get on your most empowered pathway of growth, you end up manifesting those biggest, deepest fears that have prevented you from getting on that path of growth, right? Like the fear of, what's coming. If you make a change, if you go and do that thing that people will disapprove of, or you're going to lose disconnection over here, or people will judge you over here, or what if you fail? All of those fears are absolutely going to come true the moment you really have the courage to step forth and tread your most empowered pathway of growth. Now, why the hell would we tread the pathway of growth if our deepest fears are going to become a reality? And the answer to that question is that whatever you most fear, in order for it to no longer be a limitation in your life, you actually have to have an experience with it so that you can prove to yourself that you can break through it. And also you have the opportunity to grow in the areas that you most need to grow. So it sounds paradoxical, but whenever you get on the most empowered pathway of growth, yes, you do manifest your deepest fears. And I'm going to give you some personal examples so that you can apply this to your life and see how this works. But you also develop the tools and put those tools in your tool belt that you most need in order to reach a new level of your potential and be your most fulfilled self. All right, so that's what I want to dive into. So let me give you the examples. All right, so the first one, you guys have been following me for a while. You already have heard me talk about this probably 10 million times and you're probably totally sick of hearing it. But just try it on again and apply it to your own life. But firstly, one of the major transitions I made in my life was getting off the wrong path and discovering why the hell I was on the wrong path. That wrong path was, just going and getting another degree, and really not having any direction in my life and not knowing who I was or what it was that I wanted to do and just doing whatever I thought would, be to the expectations of the people that I loved most, right? So I was chasing an external approval, right? And so that kept me on the wrong path. And my most empowered pathway from there was to get off the wrong path, right? Was to decide, no, that is not for me. And I didn't even know exactly what I wanted to do. I just knew what the wrong thing was. And I had to get off that path in order to free up the energy to be able to, and the capacity to be able to discover what is the right path, right? Because we can't do that when we're stuck on the wrong path and we're self-defeating and self-deflating because we're not operating in our highest values and we're doing it for all the wrong motivations, right? And so my deepest fear that kept me on the wrong path for a long period of time and unable to acknowledge that I was deceiving myself was the deepest fear of losing the approval and what I would deem on a subconscious level, the love and belonging from my family. All right. And so what happened when I took the most empowering path despite my fears and I ended up, getting off that wrong path was my deepest fear manifested, right? I lost the approval of the people closest to me. I was called a failure. I was, all those worst things that I feared most. I was disconnected from them for months, in communication. They thought I'd been lying to them. Like all my worst nightmares, came true, right? As a result of me taking the most empowered pathway forward. Because I took the most empowered pathway forward, though, I actually stood to gain what I really needed. Right? Although my deepest fears came true, what I truly needed was an ability to approve of myself, to internalize my sense of approval rather than externalize it and, be guided in an inauthentic direction, trying to get approval from my external world. And taking the most empowered pathway, my deepest fears came true, but they had to come true to prove to myself that I could manage that, I could get beyond that, I could grow through that and build even deeper connections with them has been the experience. But also, what I most needed was an inner sense of certainty and approval. So I wasn't seeking that from the external world and taking on an inauthentic pathway, right? So that's one example. Now, the next example I want to give you is a very common theme that I've seen in my intimate relationships. So again, I'm sharing these stories so that you guys can hopefully, hear it and try it on for size and see where does that apply in my life? Like where am I seeking approval or where have I done things that, to counteract my deepest fear? But basically, one of the common themes, and I can highlight 3 specific examples where my deepest fear came true, and also I developed the tools that I most needed because of it, right? So my most empowered pathway of growth that I've experienced in these three examples that I want to share with you with 2 different people were basically identifying the red flags in a relationship and being truthfully realistic and expressing what those were, right? And getting out of my, wanting to make the other person feel really good about themselves and just be really idealistic about all the possibilities, but actually be blind or unconsciously kind of cut off and, put my own blinkers on so that I could, 1, make that person feel good about themselves, because if I could make them feel good about them, I would feel good about me. And 2, being so idealistic and missing the reality of a situation and what the red flags were. In those situations, which I have found myself in more times than I'd like to admit through my entire existence, but I'm going to narrow this down into some specific situations in intimate relationship. Basically those times where I took the path, my most empowered path, right? In spite of the fear was, my deepest fear was, I don't want to lose safety and trust in the relationship, right? And what my most empowered pathway forward was, though, was to go, you know what, I actually need to be realistic in this situation. I need to acknowledge what's really not healthy in this dynamic, and I need to express that and address that. Here's what's happened in those times. Number one of the times was I had my partner end up deceiving me for many, many months. A situation occurred where I spoke this truth. It created some conflict and disconnection. My partner reacted by way of being intimate with somebody else, and then we sorted it all out. But like, he never told me about anything like that happening. And then it was like months, and then eventually it kind of came out, and I was completely oblivious to that happening. And when it did happen, right, that could have been one of the most feared experiences of every single relationship I've ever been in. What's one of the biggest fears that we have? What if they betray us? What if that happens, right? And that actually happened, right? Because of me speaking up the truths and changing the dynamic. That was his response in that moment. And then the subsequent deception, because I'm a big believer in, hey, we mess up as human beings, but I really do believe in being completely honest and transparent with a person that you're in relationship with about your screw ups and about what you've done, because then you give them the opportunity to decide, well, is this something that they want to work on, or is it not, right? Rather than deceiving somebody and not giving them, from my perspective, the opportunity to have choice about what they feel is right and what they feel isn't right. So my choice was taken away. That was the main thing for me. And basically, so that's obviously going against safety and trust, which is the two things I didn't want to lose, right? I was deepest feared losing safety and trust. And basically from there, that's my deepest fear coming true, right? But it actually gave me an incredible experience, because I actually, at that point in my development, I didn't realize how far I'd come in terms of not making the actions of somebody else mean anything about me personally, right? I didn't fall into the, oh my God, like, what was it about her that was better than me? Or, I see these people get in this trap, or, and they get really caught up and hung up on that. I didn't make any of those meanings up in that moment. I actually just saw it for, the way that he dealt with a challenging moment. And it was a really amazing tool for me to develop at that time, which was ultimately to not make the things that other people do mean anything personally about you, and be able to see how people handle challenges and conflicts in, sometimes less than emotionally intelligent ways, right? And so that gave me that tool, right? My deepest fears came true. Now, with the same person, this other thing happened, right? I learned a lot of lessons with this person. So the next thing that happened was same thing I did, because my challenge is being too pleasing, operating in this realm of like not wanting to upset somebody, not wanting to hurt their feelings, being too appeasing, right? And it's not a healthy pattern. It's actually very selfish, and that's a whole nother topic that we can go into. But basically it led me to, again, having my most empowered pathway of growth being to speak up about what wasn't right? And where there was some unaddressed truths that really needed to be spoken up about and could create conflict. But I needed to be willing to be realistic and just address what the red flags were, right? And so I did that. And again, one of my deepest fears came true. So this ex-partner of mine ended up attempting to ruin my reputation in the eyes of his family, which was very important to me, right? Like in relationship, I'm a big believer in, you don't just go and air your dirty laundry or be the victim and present your one-sided victim story to family or friends or whatever, if you really value that relationship and its longevity, right? Because human nature is, we just want to be enabled for our victim story. But if you go and talk to your friends and your family who love you dearly about another person, they're always, even if you're going to go make up with that person and then everything's back to normal, your family and friends don't view it that way. They've still got that question mark. They've still got that perception of that partner in their minds, right? And so you're creating an unnecessary dynamic at play with somebody that you supposedly is the love of your life and you want to spend your life with them, right? It's not healthy. You need to be more future focused in that regard, right? So my deepest fear was having, his family see me in a negative light, right? Because I really want, if I'm in relationship with somebody, it's important for me to be in connection and with their family or the people that they care about, right? Like most of us, it's just natural. And so it had to happen. My deepest fear had to happen. And that's ultimately what happened. So they attempted to ruin my reputation in the eyes of the people that they cared about. And what was the gift? What was the tool that I most needed? Was ultimately that I needed to just value and be strong within who I am, no matter what anybody has to say about me or any complaints or victimization that they want enabled, right? And so that strength in knowing who I am despite any of that was the tool I most needed, right? I took the empowered pathway. Sorry about that. My deepest fears came true. And then I got the opportunity to develop the tool I most needed, which was a strength and trust within myself. All right. And then the last one I want to finish with expressing to you guys was with a different person. But again, the same pattern that I needed because sometimes the most empowered growth pathway is one that you don't just walk once, like you continuously have to walk it, right? Like you have to tread that path and build that muscle. And this has definitely been mine, right? Is like speaking up the truths, right? Even though it could create conflict. And so the next situation that happened for me, again, my fear, losing safety in a relationship dynamic and losing trust. And I took the most empowered pathway forward for my growth, which was to just be brutally honest, like just truthful, like what are the red flags here, right? And I had to build that muscle because I'm so idealistic. I had to build the muscle of realism. And I operated in a way that was very truthful and honest from the get-go. And what actually ended up happening was this person, like my deepest fears, right? Like escalated my need for safety and trust. I actually had this person threaten my life. Okay. So like talk about an escalation. Like this person threatened my life because I took the most empowered growth pathway forward. My deepest fears came true, right? Like I wasn't even contemplating somebody wanting to take my life, but like that's my fears escalated to the extreme, like losing that safety, losing that trust. But what did I gain? I gained the tool that I most required, which was my ability to be much more discerning about who I let into my life. All right. So those are some examples that paint a picture that initially might sound and seem kind of negative and kind of make us question, well, why the hell would we even take the most growth pathway forward if our deepest fears are going to become a reality, right? Like it sounds crazy. Why would we put ourselves and subject ourselves to such pain? But I hope that me sharing a couple of examples right now, yes, my deepest fears manifested in that time, but what I stood to gain in the long term was much more valuable than me staying stuck on a disempowering pathway of pain and continuing to run the same old cycle that might create and maintain some harmony in my external world, but would ultimately create complete chaos in my internal world. I had to be willing to go, you know what? I have to take the most empowering pathway forward. I had to realize, which I didn't realize prior to these situations, This is a learned truth, right? Through experience. But now I know the pattern. Now I can be more comfortable with the fact that highly likely my deepest fears in this situation will become a reality, but that's okay. Why? Because I need to experience my deepest fears in order to be given the opportunity to develop the tool to put in my tool belt for future use in the area that I absolutely most need it, so that I do not succumb to this disempowering path again. All being said, like you just heard, I've had to go down that next step on the growth path in particular that area of, speaking up for the truth and not just maintaining harmony, but actually being real and being open to the conflict that invites. That's had to happen to me a few times. And as you heard, my deepest fears have manifested in kind of different little ways, but they've happened, right? But if they didn't, what kind of life would I be living? One in which I'd stay on the disempowering path, one in which maybe my deepest fears in that dynamic wouldn't manifest, but what it would cost me is all the tools that I most need to be my most fulfilled human being, right? And so that, I believe, if it's true for me as a human being, I feel like it'll be true for you. It's definitely been true with all the clients that I've supported on these journeys, right? So just acknowledging this truth could really be the thing that helps you generate the courage to make the transition onto your growth pathway faster, right? Instead of living and wasting time on the disempowering path, trying to keep yourself safe from your deepest fears, when you acknowledge they're going to come true and you need them to come true in order for you to get the tools that you need so you can become fulfilled and you don't have to run the same old patterns, you might just take that step. So that is my hope for what I've shared with you guys today. So I definitely want to check in with you guys, see who's been able to join me. And so drop me any comments or words of wisdom or questions, anything that you'd love to share. I'd love to hear from you as usual. But I've got Jared in the house, and Cinda and Yon and Julie and Patrice and Lisa and Rim and Bill. Much love to you. And Ravi's here, and Christelle and Anthony and Emil. I'm loving that you're finding something amazing in today's message. And Dawn's here, and Vanessa, awesome. And Nando, much love to you, my friend. And Vanessa, this is spot on. I've seen this happen between my partner and his 4 sisters. I've distanced myself from them now, and know I love their brother, and our relationship isn't really their business. Yeah. I love that. That takes some courage, right? To set healthy boundaries and to be a lot more discerning about who we invite into our inner lives. And yeah, I'm a big believer in, even if they're family, right? Like, if you would not allow another person to treat you in a way that a family member is treating you, like, just because they're blood doesn't mean they get to treat you a certain way. I feel like oftentimes when they're a family member, it can require more of your focus and attention and your willingness to want to put down a healthy boundary and work towards that. But at the end of the day, like, don't ever, like, just because somebody is your family member or your husband's family member or whatever it is there, Vanessa, like you're saying, don't ever let that override what's healthy for you. So I love what you just shared there, Vanessa. And yeah, as usual, we always resonate with one another. So thank you so much for sharing today. Love having you here as always. And Judy's here, and Angela. And Nando, relationship helps us to learn lots, but being single and learn how to love ourselves unconditionally helps us stop suffering and don't feel the need, to have anyone to fulfill anything in our lives. I learned my lesson in the hard way. I suffered to learn, and I learned that I don't need to suffer to learn. Yeah, so true. So, yeah, like you're going to learn a ton of, valuable lessons when you're in relationship. You're going to learn a ton when you're single. You're going to learn a ton no matter whether it's a lesson in suffering and pain, or it's kind of more comfortable and just an aha moment. Like, it's all going to be valuable. So absolutely true. And love the journey you're on there, Nando. And always good to see you. So that is my message for you. Just remember, just take it, like you can apply it to your own life, see if it feels true for you, or you might want to just use me as the guinea pig of, kind of what happens. And you can really just look at the truth of what can go on when you take the most empowering pathway forward. Just be willing to accept that your deepest fears will become a reality, but you don't want to just get hung up on that. You want to be more future focused and go, the opportunity, right? My deepest fears have to manifest so that I can have an experience of becoming the person that can transcend those fears and become stronger because of it, and generate the tools that I most need to move me in the direction of my most fulfilled self. All right. So much power in acknowledging this. And Alps, everything comes to self-respect and what our inner self tells us. The more we listen to it, the more we will have a happy life. Absolutely. Getting in alignment with what your truth is, respecting and honoring yourself enough to address that, and valuing how you feel about a situation rather than like I've done in the past and continue to trip up a little bit with this one. So I've still got more layers on this, but I can get kind of focused on how this is going to affect other people. And my work is in including myself, right? And sometimes, I don't want you guys, I speak to many people, particularly women, who get caught up in this fear of selfishness, right? Like, that's just me being selfish if I just care about myself. And we get very, very caught up in that. And I'm telling you, get out of that, right? Guilt is not your friend, right? And, feeling like you're being selfish is not going to support you or your partner. I've come to a point in my life where in my relationships, I actually have to confront the truth that, sometimes I don't really want to go there, but I have to, because if I don't, I'll tell you what happens. Resentment enters the equation. Anytime you have unspoken truths, resentment becomes the silent killer of your connections. All right. And I want to value the people that I'm in relationship, in friendships, in intimate relationships, in my family relationships, all of it. I want to value those relationship dynamics so much that I'm willing to have my deepest fears become a reality, because I value the relationship too much for it to end up in a state of resentment and, all this unspoken hurts and challenges and whatever, right? So hope that that's a value me sharing with you, and I so appreciate you sharing, Alps. Always good to see each and every one of you. Hope today's message has served you and supported you. And, as always, I'm always sending all of my love to you guys, and also letting you know to just go out there and live authentically, right? Speak your truth, know what it is, and express it. Love deeply. Don't hang out in the surface. It's really boring, right? And also contribute meaningfully. That's where your fulfillment lays, right? Know that your life is here for to make a meaningful difference, okay? And discover what that is, what authentically inspires you, and go about growing in that area and being able to share it. That's where your fulfillment is, all right? So much love for you too there, Bill, and to each and every one of you, and I cannot wait to see you guys tomorrow. Much love.